support the businesses. And as a bank, we are also coming out to do financial literacy. We are attracting some more partners on board to be able to reskill or retool some of these people so they can run profitable businesses. So we can participate in all these opportunities. The people who go out and come back or who send money back home, how do we support them to invest or tap into these opportunities that I have highlighted? I'm going to delve a bit into the foreign direct investment SWOT analysis. I tried to do a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. First of all, the strength I've already mentioned. Uganda is blessed with a very young productive population. It's a very good thing. But then we must plan for this labor. We must plan for these people. Where do they go? Where do we put them? Like the Filipinos. Actually, I was reading that when you ask a Filipino who is in the age of about 12 to 15 years, about 60% of them will say they want to work out of the country. Because I think they have put in place policies, mindset change, and all that to be able to show them that if you can't make it back home, if you can't run a successful business, if you can't be employed, there's an option here. And so they are able, and there are all these policies and processes to support them so that they can go and flourish outside the country. Government has given us policies, and I'm glad that Laban is at it and the rest of the team. They are trying to see how to strengthen these policies so that we don't hear these bad stories of, oh, they removed someone's organ, they did, because they scare the others and they give us a bad name. So I'm glad that government has been at it, but I think they're trying to do more in this space. And of course, a stable environment. Those are the strengths. Now, when you look at the weaknesses, we do not have a robust tracking and data management system for these remittances and the diasporas, the diaspora workforce. So I don't know, for example, Laban, if you're able to know how many Ugandans are out of the country and where they are. The Filipinos, like I mentioned, the data is available. So there is a whole process as you know how you register, how you get trained, how you leave the country, and they keep even in touch to find out how you're doing. So those are some of the weaknesses. Unskilled labor force, we talked about it. Someone lives here, they are working as a domestic assistant, they have never seen a fridge, they've never seen operated a washing machine, they don't know a dishwasher, they don't know these basics, they can't even read, you know. So we must look at skilling our labor so that they are attractive to the external market. Regulatory and compliance requirements, our friends in Bank of Uganda, we need to hear this. At the moment, when you're opening an account and you're a Ugandan, you must have a national ID. Now we have many Ugandans who do not have national IDs and they have no access to NIRA. So that remains a challenge. It's a weakness, and I think it's important that we think about it. If we are to support Ugandans living in the diaspora and they don't have access to NIRA. And of course the other is about the requirements for labor export companies. I think this one falls under Ministry of Gender. So they are required to present a bank guarantee before they are given a license. But for a bank to open an account, we need a license. Did you hear that? It's a chicken and egg. They want a bank guarantee, but before a bank can work with you, they need a license. They need to know that you are licensed to do that business. So those are some of the challenges, and we've been trying to see how to overcome, how to get exceptions here and there. We've supported a number of labor export companies, but I can tell you it's not easy. So those are some of the weaknesses that we need to look at. Opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, lots of opportunities in this labor market space. Lots of opportunities. Engineer talked about people who are living. Just look at the region, East African region. We have quite a number of Ugandans in Kenya, a number of Ugandans in DRC, in South Sudan, in Rwanda, and when you look at other African countries, they are quite a number. So there are lots of opportunities in here. We are talking about Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The agreement has been signed. Do we see opportunities where people will be moving from Uganda to go and work in Gambia, to go and work in Morocco, to go and work in... Do we see all these opportunities? And how ready are we to tap into them? And of course, oil and gas, that one has been mentioned. That's also a very good opportunity. We have been talking about skilled labor, and I'm glad there are some efforts, in that space. And then the threats. Engineer, you're right. You mentioned that whether you put in place policies or not, you will not stop people. These people are unstoppable. They'll use porous borders. They'll do whatever they can to lead the country in search of a better life. So we have seen human trafficking. Of course, some are hoodwinked and they are taken. And what follows is something different. So I'm happy that the government has come in to see, at least to bring some sanity in this area, because it's really heartbreaking to hear someone's daughter leaving, son, they leave and they come back as bodies, or they go and they are used for other. So there are all these threats that we must be aware of so that we handle them. Now I'm going to talk about the role of diaspora in the foreign direct investment, and we talked about it, Engineer. We have seen remittances grow, and remittances can come in form of consumption, others come in form of investment, but we have seen the remittances grow over the years. When you look at 2019, our remittances almost touched 1.4 billion US dollars. When you look at 2020, it reduced a bit, and I think you all know COVID. So diaspora remittances are quite high and they are growing. So imagine if we focused on this and we streamlined a few issues. What would it mean for our economy? What would it mean for our families? What would it mean for our young people? 4% contribution to the GDP, and 19% of the remittances are from family members, sending back money for either taking care of the children, paying fees, or contribution for wedding, like Laban mentioned. And 13% of Ugandans live off these remittances. 13%. He mentioned, if we are to ask how many of us have a cousin, a sister, a brother who is outside the country, I think all of us might put up our hands. And 10% of these remittances are from informal channels. Informal because people go there, not formally, and so even sending money, we are losing quite a lot as a financial system. We are talking about savings, we are talking about investments. So if all this money was coming through the formal channels, think about what it would do for the economy. I'll now talk about our role as a bank in bridging the gap. First of all, we facilitate global funds flow by linking to the international financial systems. So when you want to send money, you're in UK, you're in US, we have a global financial system where you're able to send that money from that bank to your account in housing finance or to another bank. So that is one thing that we facilitate. We create investment options for investors and diaspora community. I think it was last week when they covered two or three ladies. I think I read it in one of the papers. I don't remember which paper. They were talking about ladies who went to Dubai and they were able to invest to build rental units. One lady was saying she has been able to build rental units, and on a monthly basis, she gets about 2 million shillings. She has built rental units, she has built a house for the mother, and I felt like, wow, these are very beautiful stories. I think it was in one of the papers. So we give investment options to these people, and we educate them. Either they come and buy land, or they invest in property, or they invest in treasury bills and bonds, lending to the government. So we advise them. And we have a number of customers in the diaspora who are investing in treasury bills and bonds, who are lending money to the government. We have a number of them who have put up, rental units. There is one I met, we finished her transaction when she was not here. And she came to just look at the property and appreciate. And she came, I think, last week. I met her last week. She lives in the US. And she has put up her investment here in Uganda because her plan is to come back home and retire here. So these are some of the things we do for our customers. And like I mentioned, we've been participating in the diaspora activities. We were supposed to be in Canada. Visa issues came up. In September, we shall be in the US, we shall be in Netherlands, we shall go to the UK, and very many countries to be able to support the Ugandans, to educate them. Because some of them have been hoodwinked, their money has been stolen through sending money to relatives and those who claim they are friends. Some of them come here, they tell them, oh, we are constructing, we are now at ring beam level. We have now roofed. We have now plastered. Someone comes on ground and they find an empty plot and they collapse. But when you work with the bank, because these are some of the things we are supporting our customers on, we have very many partners that we work with that can supervise the construction. We have a team of professionals, the surveyors, the valuers, the architects, that can support our customers in the diaspora to be able to invest and have safe investments back home. And of course, financial advisory and financial literacy. We've actually been partnering with some of the labor export firms. And before the customers go, we talk to them about handling savings, because some of them give information, their bank account information, to their relatives. Before they come, the money is all wiped out. So we give them financial advice on different investment options and also financial literacy. And of course, those who require credit, we also support those who require credit, because in some cases you have saved but you don't have enough money to invest or to buy a property or an asset. And how do we facilitate this? We have different remittance options. We have World Remit. You know that World Remit announced that they were leaving, but this is for sending money out of Uganda. They are still on sending money to Uganda. So we still have a number of customers who are sending money. And when they use, for example, World Remit, money lands straight on the bank account. We have Transfast, we have Small World, of course Western Union and MoneyGram, and we are onboarding quite a number of other remittance companies so that they are able to support our customers who are in the diaspora and they want to send money back home. I talked about the investments that we are supporting, treasury bills, bonds, fixed deposits, and of course investing in real estate, some of the areas that we are supporting our customers on. And I talked also about financial literacy, and then insurance. We also have insurance cover. You mentioned insurance. We have insurance cover for our customers, like travel insurance. Those who want to insure their homes, want to insure, their families, their parents, their children. We have all these options, so that when someone is out there, they have a building and it has caught fire, they will not spend sleepless nights. They will know that I have insurance that has covered me. I want to finally end with how do we support the farms? Because I've been talking about individuals who travel. Now, the farms that have been involved in this space, first of all, we give advisory, because of course before you operate, you need company registration, you need licenses, you need all that. So a number of customers come to us to ask about company registration. We have a team of advisors, our lawyers, who then take them through the process. And then, of course, vetting, licensing by regulatory bodies. We provide bank guarantees. We make sure they have bank accounts and all that. And then when they start recruiting the people who travel, we support them with financial literacy. We open accounts for the individuals. And those who require working capital, we also support them. Because at times the other companies order for labor, but maybe they haven't paid a lot, or they pay a small portion, but the operation costs here are quite high. So we support the labor companies. As long as you have a valid contract, we shall support you in terms of contract finance, in terms of bid securities and guarantees that you may require. And of course, when it comes to payment process, we also support in terms of best forex rates, online banking in case you need to transact, and then the money remittance solutions that are talked about, and then the investment options. Now, I would like to end by saying, ladies and gentlemen, you saw that triangle that engineer drew. The 4%, was it 4%? 20? No, that top. No. Really? Remember something small. 20, 60. Okay. Now, Housing Finance Bank is in all those segments. We have the mortgages that target the high end. We have dealt with the middle, who are building or buying, houses that they can afford. And we are playing in the lower space. Engineer, you need to listen to our stories. We have built over 500 houses for people who are doing work like border men, taxi drivers, the small traders who wake up every day to go and make money. And we launched this product at one of the homes, a border man. I almost shed tears. I say, to me, this is what it means to touch lives. If there is something that gives me gratitude, it is that housing finance touching lives of Ugandans. And we are going to continue doing that. And that's why we are an indigenous bank, because an indigenous bank should be able to understand the needs of the population, the needs of the people. We listen and see how to support our people. So even in this labor externalization discussion, we are here with you, Laban. We are here with you, Engineer. We are here with you, Linda. We are ready to support Ugandans to make their lives better. So I would like to say that as Housing Finance Bank, we are committed. We are here to stay. We've been around for over 50 years. We are not going anywhere. We want to make sure that Ugandans are better and better every day. Thank you very much.
now pose a narrative that if you want anything done, leave it to peace. Isn't it? Yeah. Thank you so very much, EP. And we hope that you've done a very wonderful job in making sure that we rhyme the theme of the day. And anybody who is here, I'm just going to pose a question to anyone besides Lapan. Anyone who would want to answer my question? At random? Should I ask first? Yes. Anybody from Cambridge? What have you learned from the presentation of the EP? Anybody from Cambridge? In our lectures later, we will take away them. That will be a serious one. Okay, let me pick from the other table where Bakash is. Yes, gentlemen. Yes. Somebody move the microphone there. To that gentleman. You know going up?
He's a youth.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Businje Rudy. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Youth Network Initiative and the General Manager for my channels in Uganda. Yes. Thank you so much, Housing Finance Bank. Thank you so much, Mr. Laban, for enabling us to be here. What I've learned from Madam Peace here is that she is touching lives. Housing finance is touching lives. So for me, that's what I have learned. And we are also willing to talk with you, Madam, to make sure that you touch lives of young people. Because when we check, very many young people live in this country and they are doing amazing work. Last week we were with the National Planning Authority and we saw how much those people are contributing to the economy. They're even better than the coffee. The money we get from them is better than the money we get from coffee. So thank you so much for providing this platform, and we are really want to work with you, but also learn from you more. Thank you so much.
Because those ones are in the bank, those messages are in the bank. Let me give you the general. Go and print your wallet, gentlemen. Yes. We are not bringing you. Just speak for the sake of speaking.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much, Julius. The reason why I stood up alongside Laban giving a standard question is one, she has been able to demonstrate. My name is Robert Liacha, I'm the Executive Director of the Environment Shield. You saw one of the logos, the green logo. But that piece has been able to actually at least flip the coin, looking at the positive side of the youth, because what has been the case is that youth are looked at as a problem. Actually, you hear it every day, youth problem, but she has actually now looked at the positive side, because the average, she was looking at the average, like for example for the USA, the average age is 39 years, but in Uganda the average age is 18 years. So she was able to look at the people as a problem. We should be looking at how do we leverage and harness the opportunity that comes with the youthfulness and the energy that comes with them, the innovativeness, and how do we channel that and harvest that energy into productive work and being able to tap in the future. Because we know that the next 20, 30, 50 years ahead, then it means that actually Uganda and Africa is the future. Thank you.
Let me have Linda give us the last remarks you understood from the EP's session. Just be snapping about a minute.
Yes, I understood a lot of things. I understood a lot. And I think for me, the area you talked about where housing finance helps people working out of the country to invest. There were the fixed assets, the bonds, and the third one was? Real estate. And in addition to that, I think if we could look at partnering with the Youth Coalition in the long run to provide opportunities for them to also invest in businesses, I think that would be really good for them.
Yes. In the present day, I will have leaders last, but cash will come later. In the present day, what leaders done is the category. Which is saying, yes, it is. Invest in the youth and invest in the youth and their businesses and housing finance fund. Being Ugandan born and working in Uganda and being one of the best institutions that we have. Just to let you know, housing finance has one of the robust systems. You will never hear any person come on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook saying, my money was lost in housing finance. I have not happened this year. If you go on Kampala Road, there is a bank on Church House. Several people, I made a story while at NBS television and investigating. It refused to air, but I did it. And it was about the fraudster in that bank. An employee and lots of stuff is being done there. And I presume that the future of the bank could be on the edge if nothing is done. Big prayers or systems being tightened. But I want to say thank you so much. Not because it's here. Every other bank has their own faults. If you go to Stanbic Bank, if you use agent banking, you know that they are network. If you go to ABSA, their feedback is worse. Housing finance, thank you so much. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as all this is happening, we would like to talk to the person who keeps our monies. When you listen to radio and watch TV, you say, this bank is replaced by bank propaganda. And you really say if your money is safe, and you really know that nobody can touch your money, but then someone says, my 5 million was withdrawn without my consent. Then they tell me, go to bank propaganda, go to People's Protection Fund, you need to track very well, bring us the documents here, and then we shall find it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome a gentleman from the markets, financial markets, the director from Bank of Uganda, to give us a remark. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Before you came, I thought this guy was DJ Silver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. It's going to be very difficult to speak after a very eloquent lady that given standing ovations. I really have a challenge. Peace has set the tone. She said it all. I think now I should just go and sit because almost everything that I wanted to say, Peace has said. But anyhow, my colleague David is from the Bank of Uganda as well. And he is the regulator, he's the one who closes the banks. Myself, I'm in charge of market development. So sometimes we develop things and the guys come and say, no, you're going too fast. But anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't know whether there's someone on a projector. Yourself, I don't know, do you have my presentation? I think while Laban is doing that, I will just be very brief because I know some very important people would like to move on to the next assignment, but my presentation will also, okay, brilliant. So this is a very interesting picture. As you can see the roads, I'm speaking on behalf of government. I'm out of Uganda, okay? We're not going to build hotels, we're not going to build, we're going to build roads, the things that no investor is going to put money into. These are things that government does. Okay, but then on the other side, you can see there's a Ugandan who is in Paris, and you can see the Eiffel Tower, and he's looking at his computer and talking to someone in the housing finance bank. But that will make sense as we move along. So can I request someone to keep scrolling for me? Forget about that slide. I'm just going to keep skipping the slides as we move along. Of course, we're talking about FDI. These are things that have been discussed, and probably the last speaker should be defining FDI. But broadly speaking, this is money investment that is made by a foreign investor into our country. If we consider FDI, it has to be a minimum of 10%. Less than 10% is just a stock option, a stock holding in a company. The global value of FDI is about $1.65 trillion. That was in 2021. That's up from about $859 billion in 2020. Of course, we know the world was affected by COVID, so everything slowed down. Africa only attracts about 5% of that, which is about $83 billion. And Uganda is about $1.7 billion. You can see how small we are in the global space. What are the advantages of FDI? Almost all the speakers have talked about them. Please mention them as well in our SWOT analysis. But there's many advantages. We all know economic growth through job creation, human capital development through skills transfer. In our diaspora engagements, we always meet very highly skilled Ugandans working in Silicon Valley, guys who are working in Microsoft. We have very highly skilled Ugandans, medical professionals in fantastic hospitals all over the world, doing some groundbreaking stuff. Why can't you benefit from that? I'm not going to have a very big job, but I'm happy that the job was given to a very young, solid, energetic, man like Lapa. Who's going to run and open doors and shake the people. Because, honestly speaking, if you want to use the conservative approach of saying government, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bank of Uganda, etc., there's a lot of bureaucracy. You have to write a memo through so you may face this one, write a hypothesis, the business case and all that stuff, go to parliament. By the time you get a policy passed, technology has changed and then it doesn't make sense anymore. So someone like Laban would go and knock a door and say, listen, this is what the labor people need to do. So I have a team of members here who can make it happen. Then they say, Peace is here from Housing Finance Bank, Arnold is here from Bank of Uganda, we have a consultant, engineer who is there to fix everything that you need. So let's move. So I'm very happy about that. Anyways, other advantages, of course, increased exports, because when this capital comes, it's coming from foreign lands where their production is targeting those markets. So naturally, exports pick up, that increases FX inflows, stable exchange rates. Of course, also helps combat climate change, of late we've been seeing a lot of FDI coming to climate-related enterprise. Disadvantages, it's a hindrance to domestic investment. Of course, it's a disadvantage but an advantage at the same time, because it makes us up our game. We used to have a company called UTA, we used to have UBC, UTV. We would switch on the TV at 5:50 and watch the curtain there, those who are holding up, and watch the curtain and wait for 6 o'clock. And then at 10 p.m. after the news, they shut down. And then we had some FDI in the form of DSTV that came and revolutionized TV. And then MTN came and made things better with mobile phones and stuff like that. So, it also enabled the development of local TV. Now we have the likes of NBS who are quite competitive, quite competitive with CNN. And sometimes I'll flip between NBS News at 9 o'clock or CNN or UBC. So thank you very much, NBS. And those are some of the advantages and the positives of FDI. Of course, there's some disadvantages of mentioned, expropriation by foreign entities, exploitation of by foreign companies, and these are the headaches that my colleague here, Laban, will have to deal with all those bosses up there. What are the favorable conditions for FDI? I don't know whether we have the same slide. Yes. Favorable conditions, okay, brilliant. Political and macroeconomic stability. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to talk about this. We have been politically stable for a long time. Government has created a stable macroeconomic environment. What's next is for the money to come in, because the environment is adequate. Now we need to strategize towards the money coming in. We've been working a lot on this stable macroeconomic conditions, but now is the time for the money to come in. GDP growth rate, we've had consistently good growth rates over the past couple of years, save for COVID. Openness of the economy, Uganda is one of the most open economies. Those of you who have traveled the world will know that Uganda is one of the most open economies. You come and you do whatever you want as long as you're within the law. Very open economy. A Chinese comes and opens up a Matoke store in the Casero market and it's okay. It may be very difficult for you to go and do that in China. Okay, limited government regulation. Of course, there I'm shooting myself with the foot. But, as much as possible, I was discussing with the engineer at breakfast, and he was talking about government regulation and how government is interfering. We shouldn't be in the micro detail. We need to provide oversight, which is a very good thing, and that's a condition to attract FDI. Conclusive tax, a conducive tax environment. Of course, they all want tax holidays and things like that. Infrastructure, airlines and roads and electricity. Size of the local market, access to free trade areas, the likes of the free zones and stuff like that. Wage rates, that's how the discussion of minimum wage has never seen the light of day. Because, investors don't want to come in and have to pay somebody a minimum of $10 an hour in this economy of ours. So, but these are discussions that we continue to have. These are some of the favorable conditions for FDI. If we can move on to the next slide. Can you guys see the chart over there? So, not yet? Oh, it's there, okay. I want you to pay close attention to the two charts at the top. Ignore the ones at the bottom. Those are the ones that are relevant to this meeting, right? As you can see, FDI is going up generally, but it's very volatile. Up and down, okay? However, the red line, which is remittances, is more stable, okay? Now, it's stable even throughout the dips. The dips are talking about the crises, about 2008, the global financial crisis, 2011, the Eurozone crisis, 2013, the BRICS crisis, 2020, the COVID crisis. If remittances continue going up, right? Now, that means that remittances are more reliable than anything else. And how does it happen? It happens because these are Ugandans who are living abroad. They will never abandon us, because they have families back home. Whatever the case may be, they will continue sending money back home. Alright? You can just move on to the next slide. And that is for Sub-Saharan Africa. The story is similar. Remittances have remained consistent. FDI is going up generally, but very volatile. You can move on to the next slide. Being from Uganda, Laban told me you cannot come and just discuss theory. You have to come with numbers, you have to come with charts, and you have to seem a bit sophisticated. But, it comes with the territory, but there's no rocket science about that. So this is selected country FDIs in 2020. I hope we are looking at the same slide. You can see where Uganda is, very small, but generally speaking, compared to other African countries, we're in a similar space. Of course, if we can move on to the next slide, that's the FDI for Uganda over time, as volatile as the rest of the world, but generally on the upward trend. And the next slide is a pie chart that goes to show you where the money goes, which sectors, and the biggest is in mining and quarrying. Of course, there's manufacturing, electricity, oil and gas, etc. And I will be able to share this slide with all of you so that you can, look at them in further detail. This is select country remittances as of 2019. Nigeria has the highest figure over there, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and you can see Uganda's remittances are higher than Tanzania. DRC is quite big, and then South Africa, and we're actually higher than South Africa in terms of remittances. And the next slide, I think, is something similar to what is presented, remittances to Uganda specifically, and it's generally on the rise with a little dip in 2020 on account of the COVID slowdown. Now, this is the most important slide. Okay, how do we transform remittances into FDI? And Laban mentioned it in his earlier remarks. My governor, the late Professor Mutevele, rest in peace, wrote a paper in 2018 on how we can transform the remittances into FDI. Okay? Now, typically remittances are about consumption. 80% of the money that comes is going to weddings, is going to buying a gomacy for grandmother at Christmas, is going to school fees, is going to consumption. It's not going to investment. Okay? Now, what do we do in order to transform that money into investment? There was a feasibility study that was done in 2012 and reflected these numbers: 80% into consumption, 20% into investment. But it also reflected the fact that if we were organized as government, if we had the right instruments, if we had the right infrastructure, we would be able to transform this money into investment for government, into those fancy words that you see. And the diaspora community, who are the typical sources of the remittances, are in a position to get 5 times that amount of money. Okay? So typically these guys earn, let's say $10,000 a month, right? But he's only going to send the $100 to pay school fees for a child in the village, and the $9,900 not for me over there. Okay, and if you look at the interest rates that they earn in banks over there, they are, it's peanuts. 1%, 2%, that kind of thing, and yet they will earn much more if they invested in Uganda. The only issue is we have not been organized enough to tap into that resource. So of the 1.5 billion we're talking about in remittances, it can go up to $6-10 billion if we were organized as government and if we had put the right incentives in place to be able to capture this money. Of course, government recognizes the participation of the diaspora community. And of course that has translated into diaspora desk and I think now a department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as Laban having a job and wearing a fancy suit. He works at Kingdom Kampala as you heard. But anyhow, so diaspora can be a more reliable source of FDI, given that they are more likely to invest in Uganda while other foreign investors are running away because they fear one risk or another. These are Ugandans, they know the conditions in Uganda and they're more likely to invest. Of course, they have a lot of knowledge, expertise, they have a lot of capital, and strong networks that can help build our economy. And they also invest because of the love of their country, just out of passion. There's also a significant proportion that comes out of that. Of course, I've talked about the feasibility study findings. I'll just give you some very quick country experiences about diaspora bonds. What do I mean by diaspora bonds? You mentioned government treasury bills and bonds. These are essentially treasury bonds that are designed for the diaspora community to invest. So this is a vehicle through which they can invest in a safe manner, and their money will be safe, and they are going to earn in 3 ways. Number one is that they are going to earn a very good return, competitive return relative to the kind of return that they would have earned out there. And they're earning this money for doing absolutely nothing. Okay? And these guys can even borrow from out there at 2%, invest here at 15% prevailing rates, and earn a very big return on investment. So that's number one. Number two, the proceeds from the diaspora investments are going to making lives of the Ugandans better, constructing roads, hospitals, electric trains and things like that. So by the time they come back home, they're going to find home a much better place to live. But number three, they also get to love their country. Okay, because this is the first thing that they would associate with that say, listen, even though I may disagree with the powers that be, that these guys have stayed too long and they're giving me money, they're paying me back. Okay? They are actually giving me a good return on my investment. When I go back home, I find a nice superhighway connected airport. There are some good hospitals, so along the way, they begin to love their country, which is a very big advantage which is a very big case for diaspora bonds. So anyhow, taking us back to the country experiences, we started, the first cases of diaspora bonds were registered in Japan and China. That was in the 1930s. Okay, so there was a big Chinese community that was aware, and in order to attract them to invest, the government of China started issuing diaspora bonds. Israel in the 1950s supported the Israel diaspora after the Holocaust. Of course, all of you know the very sad story of how the Jews were handled in concentration camps and things like that. So after the Holocaust, the Jews decided to build their country, and they built their country through diaspora bonds. India, there was a balance of payment crisis in the 1990s, where the rest of the world shut India out because of some politics, and the diaspora community came in to support their government. This happens, look at an example of Russia right now, not a very basic example, maybe I'll give a different example. Let's imagine for one reason or another, Uganda there are embargoes put on Uganda, there are sanctions, you cannot get foreign exchange from different countries, the likes of Zimbabwe. Actually, that's a very good example, right? Now, under such circumstances, when you have, when you don't have access to the international capital markets, then the Ugandan community, the Zimbabwean community, if you have developed an appropriate infrastructure and an environment, then they'll be able to come in and cover those gaps. So Zimbabwe issued a $50 million diaspora bond in July 2011, which was very successful. There have been other issuers like Ethiopia, Ethiopia is about to complete the construction of 5,200 megawatt water license dam, which is going to be, I think, the biggest in sub-Saharan Africa. And the diaspora community contributed significantly to that project. Of course, Israel bonds have been one of the most successful bonds, one of the most successful programs, and they've raised about $25 billion over the last 30 years. So government securities, you guys probably already know about government securities. They are basically safe investments. This is a way that you lend government money. And those are the different tenors. I will not go through them right now. That's not why I'm here. But moving on to the next slide, why should I invest? Of course, these are safe and liquid assets. They are reasonable. They give a reasonable and consistent return. Payments are paid every 6 months. You have a duration of 91 days to actually reach 20 years now. They are also sold in the secondary market, so you can sell anytime and get back your money. You have investment opportunities 3 times a month, 1 treasury bill and 2 bonds, at a minimum of 100,000 shillings. So these are the things that we are telling the community out there. Listen, these instruments are there. 100,000 shillings in dollars is about maybe $30 US, and you're investing in your country. So real life examples of how to benefit from these bonds. Number 1, if you have children, right now I'm selling to you guys in the room as well as I would be selling to the guys in the diaspora. Okay? So if you have children and you're trying to plan for your children's education, in the future, right? A minimum investment of 100,000 shillings on a monthly basis would go into these bonds, and you keep on earning an interest on this money. You can keep on reinvesting this money, and you don't believe how much your money will grow because of the compounding factor. That is the case of children. If you're a businessman or a businesswoman and you're looking for working capital loan, right? These bonds are the highest quality collateral for loans. Unlike mortgages, for example, that you have to take and do a search in Ministry of Lands, and then there's a big discount with the mortgage, and then it will probably take you a month to get a loan. Bonds are very high quality collateral, so in 24 hours you will be able to get your loan. Retired workers who want a constant cash flow after working for a very long time and they don't want to risk their investment in very high risk ventures can invest in bonds. Diaspora workers who are who are sending in money, maybe they have a continuous liability. Maybe every year I have to send money for school fees every term, that kind of thing. If they invested a sizable amount in bonds, then the profit from the bond will keep on paying that money while they also continue earning, as opposed to the headache of having to remit money on a regular basis to take care of your family back home. Of course, the diaspora workers who have a target period that they're working for and they want to come back home can also invest in bonds. I know that there's a big group that go to the Middle East who go and their plan is to go and work for 5 years, and by the time 5 years elapse, he has a very solid business back home and is in a position to come and invest. We can structure instruments for the diaspora. There's no reason why we don't have a housing bond, to fund housing units for the diaspora community. The guys who are going to work in Oman and Saudi Arabia, etc. can come back and find houses ready for them, but through a well-structured instrument called the diaspora bond. Challenges, some of the challenges are inadequate data on the nationals in the diaspora. It was a bit difficult getting data because some of these people, the way that they go to the diaspora is not very clear. Some of them go as political refugees, some of them go on student visas and disappear in there. Some of them go on workshops, especially these youth people. You go on a workshop for 2 weeks, you have a visa, and after the 2 weeks you don't come back, you disappear in the system. Now that person will never go to the embassy to report themselves and say, this is me and this is the kind of data, etc. So there are challenges of data collection. It's very difficult understanding these financial instruments, so we need to continuously engage the diaspora community. There's fear of investing in countries given the negative press. Of course, the press are here. Somehow the positive things never come out of government, but the negative stuff is always in our faces, which is not necessarily the case. The engineer told us about how he went to Congo, and I said, how did you survive? Were there bombs? Were there what? And he said, no, it was okay. Because that's the news that we hear about Congo. If you talk to these diaspora people on these different social media groups, I'm sure that's all you hear. negativity about Uganda. Yet we live in this country, we have nice meals, we live in AC, people drive nice cars, we're always laughing. This guy somehow read some other stuff on the news. So, lack of adequate information, and there's a lack of government policy to support the diaspora. Unfortunately, the likes of Laban are here to resolve that. So, what are we proposing? We're proposing that we need to attract the diaspora to invest in government securities, and of course they start with the local, the usual investments, they make a case, and then as we move along we can eventually have the standard diaspora bond. Now, the recommendations that I have, sometimes we continue talking, we talk in these workshops, and we go away and come back next year, and nothing has happened. So my recommendation to a smart, specific, and say from here we need to have a very clear, a task force that is set up, with a particular agenda, and say from here what we need to do. Of course, that will be Laban's work to coordinate and working with the consultant who is very smart enough to, package these proposals in a very nice, sophisticated way for policymakers to appreciate. So this task force will do 3 things. Number one is they will update the feasibility study so that we collect current information about those living in the diaspora and their willingness to invest. Then we'll carry out targeted sensitization. We will inform the people through the likes of UNA and all these conventions on the opportunities to invest here. We will develop a KYC framework, and that goes to my colleague on the regulatory side, as well as working with the people in the banks. Because we need a standard KYC process for the diaspora community, so that they're able to open up accounts easily, and the likes of using the national IDs. If it's a constraint, then we agree. Can we use the passport, for example? Or some of them don't have passports. They've lived in the US for so many years, or they have their old passport. What can we use, in that space? Can we use their reserve number, social security number? Can they just go to maybe one of their community chairpersons and writes a letter and says this guy has actually been here, and 5 people can verify that he's a Ugandan who has lived in New York for the last 50 years, has never come back to Uganda, that kind of thing. And KYC is also flexible, so I think we also need to be a little bit more flexible as well. And of course, lastly, we need to develop a platform, an online platform, like the one I showed you in my first slide, where these guys are in China, in Australia, wherever they may be, just log onto this platform and submit their investments, check on their balances, and engage with all of us. On the same platform, you can house our housing finance bank, who will give you all their mortgage products. In the same platform, the same platform will have all the data, as we said, because we are all operating inside. We don't have any centralized point at which we can rally all the diaspora efforts. So in conclusion, given the shifting patterns in development finance and traditional donor funding, domestic resource mobilization efforts are getting renewed focus. And there's therefore a need to develop new instruments that will ensure financing for growth enhancement projects. So there should be targeted efforts towards transformation of remittances into FDI, and diaspora bonds are one such effort that provides resources for national development. They provide a good return for the investors, and they also enhance patriotism. As I mentioned, at the end of the day, all of us are looking for money. People are even willing to do illegal things to earn money. Now, the guy out there, however much he hates the government, but the government is giving him a good return, may actually change his mindset on the government and on his country. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for listening to me, and have a good afternoon.
I thought Laban was going to ambush the microphone, but it's okay. I'm not here. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the Bank of Uganda. Yes, Bank of Uganda is one of the institutions after the former governor. I don't know if we don't have governors yet. Is that a question someone wanted to ask? Why we don't have a governor yet? Are we having our money secured? Let me just have that question answered ASAP so that nobody asks again. The microphone chief. Hello. the microphone to him just to answer that question. Bank of Uganda, why we don't have the governors now? Is our money safe?
I will also second part. Is your money safe? 100%. No one has lost any money ever since the former governor passed away. We have institutions, we have frameworks, we have people like me, and everybody else. About the first question, I'd like to pass. I don't know who else can answer that question. But I believe there's no crisis. For now, there's no crisis. Everything is working very well. We have a very competent deputy governor who's running the show, and is supported by a very competent. I think everything is running very well, and at an appropriate time, the appointing authority will appoint the governor.
I think you're holding your own office. Should be a beer of financial markets is displaced. I think you must correct it. A lot of bless of the gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to go into the Q&A before Mr. Badru comes in, because he's having an interview with the journalists. I would like to have a Q&A to panelists who have just given us an insight on the discussion. I'm going to request only 4 questions to come in through to the ED, the BOU gentleman, and of course if you have any for Laban, we'll be glad to answer that ASAP. Then we have one usher trying to transfer the microphone. This gentleman is always on sound, so please somebody help.
Thank you so much, Trias. Once again, my name is Robert Yashira. I am quite unique because I am in the area of development, and I'm happy that Arnold talked about the area of climate financing. And I want to strictly ask him.
Yes, there's an idiot and sit down. And it says you directed hold the microphone?
Yes, yes. Yes, I was looking at the Public Finance Act, and I was excited when I saw the area of private financing, and I was asking myself, since we have someone from Bank of Uganda, how we are trying, because at the global stage is what we call the Green Fund, and that Green Fund, when they were signing the Paris Agreement, as Uganda were represented by the Prime Minister then, and the Paris Agreement provided that the developing countries like Uganda and LDCs in the Sub-Saharan African, probably Pacific and Caribbean, will be able to access about $100 billion to be as a way of compensating for the climate losses that they are actually carrying. Because as you know, there are 2 methods at the global state: adaptation and mitigation for climate change. So for us in the global south, who are deriving our income from land, who are so much in agriculture, we are going to take on adaptation. But we're supposed to be accessing that money, which is the global basket.
So what's the
question? The question is, how are we anticipating the question ourselves as Uganda to see that we tap that money and be able to have it as soon as immediate? Because the concern is that when the climate change law was passed by the president, it was passed last year, but up to now, it is not yet in place. There are no guidelines that affect, and instead we are lagging behind, and we are not really responding swiftly to the climate change issues. The second one is to my madam, please, about the issue of...
the first one is to?
The first one was to the Bank of Uganda, but the second one is to Madam, please, about the ECG, the environmental social governance. You realize that many young people are involved in the area of trying to push for, positioning themselves to fit into the energy transition, coming up with innovations which are climate smart and environmental sustainable. But the challenge comes with financing, and I was happy when she pledged that as housing finance, they are much willing and readily available to work with young people, especially through the youth coalition, to see that we push for these young people coming up with some of these climate innovations. I'd like to get it from her, whether they will be able to flag off, because as the leader said, in most cases when you come up with that innovation, try to ask for financing, the requirements, most young people really do not have that. And we have that informal youth who doesn't have the company, who doesn't have the organization, but really is coming up with very good innovation, like making of briquettes, making of some of these innovations, for example, making mats out of banana fibers, would want to see these young people being supported to see that they actually come and participate in this energy transition and the green revolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope the next person asking a question will be right in the direction of the question. Yeah? Okay, let me have Bakash.
Thank you so much, Honorable. My name is Isaac Bakash. I'm the team lead and founder of Bakash Media Foundation, a youth social enterprise that measures career guidance, mentorship, and skill development among youth. My question will go, a simple one will go to Madam Mr. Hunga. First, you're smart. Then the question is, I've heard how you try to bridge the gap, how you try to really facilitate the global fund flow, creating investment, financial literacy and all. So my question is, apart from that, do you have other local programs like resource funding and mentorship and the incubation that you're putting in place for these youth to really convince them not to go for the labor outside the country? So we find we have a problem as social entrepreneurs that we have few incubation hubs that really hope to really mentor and nurture these young people. So does National Housing Bank, Finance Bank, sorry.
It's national, it's okay, it's national. It's not really
outside programs in place for youth to support them in their innovations. Thank you so much.
All right, then we have Linda, but the questions are coming so much on this side. Are we saying this side?
This side.
Julius, thank you so much. I think my question goes to Arnold. We've talked so much about the foreign direct investment and also how we can capitalize on the labor market. Having been around the NGO space and the spaces for the young people, we realize that also there's a lot of money that other countries get, the young people in the countries they get to support the activities of the young people and their enterprises. A lot of money goes to Nigeria, a lot of money goes to Kenya, but very little money comes to Uganda to support young enterprises. And I want to know, even if we are trying to capitalize on the labor, how do we position the Ugandan youth to be in position to tap into that money that is going to these few African countries? How do we get that money in Uganda? My friend Rudin went to Stockholm, Sweden a few months ago, and other countries had prepared their young people to go and pitch on their behalf to take the money back home. And Uganda, they were so disorganized, these guys had to struggle to take themselves to Sweden. And these countries, their youth are bringing for them billions and billions of money. So I'm asking myself, how is the government and Bank of Uganda helping to position the young people so that they can also go there and pitch and bring back the money home?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Linda. Just to give you a heads up, MasterCard Foundation was so much in West Africa. About $500 billion was invested in West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria. I mean, those countries in West Africa. And it was one Ugandan that was in one of the conferences. I said, but you know what? You can have you in Makerere University. You can come and invest a lot of money in technology, in agricultural enterprises, and in welfare. Today, MasterCard is here. But when talking to MasterCard, they say Ugandans do not embrace innovation. They embrace replication of innovation. Remember when IUI University invented the washing machine that uses infrared? That very equipment was being invented in Nigeria. They made a replica that has a Uganda version. For us who went to test for COVID at Munambo, it would say, Nasa Mungano. And in Nigeria, it was in Igbo language. Somebody was on Twitter saying, but guys, IUI is not the first to invent this. But MasterCard had invested a lot of money just because they wanted to support a Ugandan who made a replica of that. So I think we should shift the discussion from not funding, but to fund what is originally ours. Am I clear? Let me have a question from this side. I've asked the question. We needed some beefing from Bank of Uganda. I don't have the money. So, Bank of Uganda should be with us. Any question from, yes, please. If you don't mind, you will stand up. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm called Caroline. I'm the executive director of Storehouse. It's an NGO. And I work with the youth, women, and children. I've learned so much the program presented by Housing Finance and Bank of Uganda. Some of my points Linda has mentioned, but also I would kindly ask that at least we should have more conferences with presentations on how the youth can invest. 100,000, not every youth can afford 100,000. At least if we can be able to bring it down so that the youth can also have investment platforms, and also something to do with housing finance, because the youth, most of us believe in investment. But how about if everyone is to start from where they are and there is not so much pressure or high amounts that are required of them? Thank you so much.
And the question is?
We should have more conferences where we are being highlighted about investment opportunities for the youth.
All right.
In housing finance and also in banking.
All right, that's understandable. I think she was just making a compliment on what the ED meant. I want to have one more question before I shift to my right. Yes, please. Let me have this gentleman. Do you have any more questions this side? Mark, you have a question? You can ask in Uganda, it's okay. All right.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Eric. I'm with Rega Hotel Limited and also Red Uganda. We are actually one of the players of the personalization, and we get a lot of challenges. My question actually goes to Baba himself. We have a lot of challenges when it comes to policy making, when it comes to our sector. A lot of bureaucracy, a lot of backdoor, and if you're a bit straight, we get a lot of problems, especially with the policy making on our side. Because now, as the engineer explained, the mindset change of the people is really important. But how are you going to help us? Because we do look at the illiterate mostly, the semi-skilled. So how do you help us export skill? Because now the few members in the room are aware that we can actually export the skill. But then how do we spread that to the people down? Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, now I can shift to this table that has asked the most questions in this forum.
Good afternoon. My name is Moses. And my question is, it's all about the taxes on our remittances from abroad. We have a lot of young people who are going abroad and they're doing so well compared to some of the others at home, because some of the youth here, most of them are struggling. And their dream is to make it and leave the country. But when they go abroad, they find a challenge that on their remittances, they are taxed so high. This goes to the banks and to the Ministry of Finance, whoever is concerned. So we should get a solution so that's where they will get the love to invest in the bonds you're talking about, the real estates you're bringing in, and anything else that will benefit us both. And another thing is, I remember that I was sending money abroad in the UK. It was buying for me something. It was around, it was costing about £700. But unfortunately, we used Swift. We didn't know that Swift, he didn't know that Swift was not operating currencies from Uganda. And the money went and it bounced. The Swift bank bounced the money. It had to come back to the country. I ended up taking a loss of about half of the money that I sent. These people of the bank I've not mentioned, they ended up giving me like half of the money. They told me that when you put the figures, those figures are too small and they are computed automatically. So that's how I made them. So I don't know how they do the tax and remittances or what, but we should get a solution for that as well. Thank you.
I'm very sorry, Moses, you lost your money at that age. Sorry, very painful. I said the almost said the government has to come through. But I'm impressed with you that the ED is here. And I talked about banks, and Bank of Uganda is also here, that also manages the Deposit Protection Fund. I'm not going to start with Bank of Uganda to start answering your questions straight away, and then I'll cross to the ED. Okay, let me start with Laban, Bank of Uganda, and then the ED will close. So you have the microphone.
Yes, thank you very much. This comes in from Aquaria, from Riga. Yeah, Aquaria, the reasons why we are trying to have these discussions is to drive towards the national policy review. We know as investors you are getting challenges, but if we work together as government and come up with policy reviews through this, I think we can come up and try to analyze the policy whereby we can understand that you as a company, Riga Uganda, or other companies, as Edie also mentioned, we have back and forth issues. We can try and see how we can liaise with all other MDS and see how we can come up with consultative discussions with people like you, and then we see a way forward. But not to just say, we see a way forward. I would like to let you know that even the video playing there, we realize that under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister, the people sat, these people who make laws, they sat and came up with the External Labour Monitoring Unit, which sits under the office of the Foreign Affairs Minister, General J.J. It has 3 mandates. One is to have a complete database of a Ugandan living in this country, which you are talking about. We want to know the KYC of the person living. Second one is about if the person has a complete training module or schedule, meaning that we're looking at, she talks about people are going abroad and they don't have complete training certificates, or we can call them. So can we have institutions like Housing Finance Bank come in and provide digital literacy training? Because when we say training, it doesn't mean that the person is going to learn how to use a washing machine, how to use, we're looking at also other comprehensive life skill training. Because we all know the reasons why someone leaves this country is to make their life better financially. But are they having financial training? I don't think so. So housing finance, maybe when you come there, in the training institute, because I know they go through a training school, but we're trying to see, can we add on more modules on the training curriculum? So that means that we go to the Ministry of Education, Ministry of what, I don't know, because there's no curriculum as I know, but we're streamlined. That video will be played later, it will be sent to you. We are also looking at questioning Bank of Uganda and your other people that you regulate. Come up with products for our investors here. They are bringing in a lot of money, investing in this sector, because it is bringing good money back. But they are being constrained. Like the gentleman told you, by the time they're going to analyze, I'm very sure because I've been to their company, they are doing about 100 people per week. But can those people go with bank accounts? Can those people go and we know that they're being paid? I have cases on my desk. Most cases I have, salary denial. People are not being paid 6 months, 8 months. So can we track down how people are being paid? So, investor point, we are trying as government. So we shall come up with at least review reports, policy review reports, and we see how we can do this. Thank you very much.
Round of applause to Laban. Okay, just to also pass this around, Laban was trying to show you the sweetheart when he was opening up the speech. Please flow against stand up recognition. That's the backbone of the family. When you sit up and smiling, that's lovely.
I just wanted to add on to Laban's input. We're trying to talk about how we track these people. If the person goes to that account and you're able to know that they were paid, then A, you know where they exist, you know they exist, and you know they're working. So maybe some of the things I need to add on that externalization conversation is everybody who gets on the plane should actually have a bank account, right? And then that payment gets paid. Then we can actually track that conversation. And also now the financial literacy advice now comes in, because now the banks are seeing me earning, but also they're seeing me. Money comes in and it dries, comes in and it dries. Then a conversation that comes in, do you know that out of that 1 million that comes in, just take 250 and put it aside before you distribute the rest to your family. So adding the issue on the regulation that everybody should have a bank account before they leave would actually fix even the track of who's out there. So sometimes you actually don't need to do the database. You actually have it done because they have an account. So you don't need to register them because you register them.
Sure, Mr. Taylor, we needed you here yesterday. Just to make things straight, in the month of July, you can externalize labor 165,000 to Saudi Arabia only. Take an instance, if all those people are financially told how to manage their finances. I'm a certified trainer, financial business trainer with Bank of Uganda, a trainer of trainers. But it is said in principle that you must save before spending. Many Ugandans, first singular, then what is remaining is what you save. You go with the family in a bar, in the governor, and in the morning you have 50K. And you ask, hey, that money, that's my pocket, so what? So, those of you who are here, that's the principle. Save before you spend. Very simple. Even if you have 100,000 and save 10, it can help you in that time where you don't understand that you need help. Let me have Bank of Uganda have the second question put to you. Answer.
Okay, thank you very much. The questions are quite sophisticated. Maybe because people who are asking are the youth. Some of us are in that bracket of 41 to 56. And we are a bit, we're not as smart as this guy, but we will attempt to answer the question. The first one was on private financing, and how do we tap into this $100 billion that is being talked about, that is going around to fund climate smart initiatives. That's a very good question. So what I could say is, of course, ESG is the new buzzword. Climate smart, climate, etc. However, some of the things that we are doing at the moment is we are trying to amend our policies, our laws, to ensure that organizations, businesses are all aligned to the climate, to the ESG principles. Okay, because that is where it starts from first. Before the money comes to you, they have a checklist and they say, are you doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things? How's your manufacturing? How's your production? How's your plant? What kind of emissions is it pushing out into the environment, etc. So you need to prepare yourself so that when they come, then you also check all the boxes, and then you'll be able to attract the financing. But that's on the private side. What are we doing as government? I'll first speak as Bank of Uganda. We launched our strategic plan only last week for the next 5 years, and one of the prominent features is we must comply to ESG. We must be climate smart. So even in terms of the way we regulate banks, even in terms of the banks that we invest in abroad, even the instruments, are they all headed towards? Are they all climate smart in one way or another? Even in terms of the loans that the commercial banks are giving out, before you give out a loan to a manufacturing entity, you must check that box and say, look, we're doing things in such a way. We are concerned about the environment. We're not just going to clear the land and let it be bare. Maybe there's a plan to provide trees and things like that. So what would say, because we are more of a policy-related entity, is we have to put policies, regulations in place to ensure that everyone that we regulate is aligned to the current agenda on climate change and ESG. There was another question on youth, I think, from the lady. And she was talking about 100,000 being on the high side. That is true actually, and we appreciate that. So what we are doing is we are trying to break it down further and trying to come up with a platform. There's actually a project called Project Hope Saving. We're trying to localize it, essentially using mobile money to invest in government securities. You do a dial *123# and you maybe use 10,000 shillings on a daily basis, maybe 5,000 shillings, and you're able to buy small units of government securities. So that enables increased savings, easy access, because mobile money has been able to penetrate the country all the way down to youth. So that's what we're doing, and I believe actually procurement is going on. The project was approved by cabinet and it's in implementation. Probably by the end of this year, we should be able to launch that initiative. Capitalizing on the labor market, how do we prioritize Ugandan youth to tap into this money? I believe maybe that question should go to Peace. There are some things she mentioned in her presentation about the Youth Empowerment Fund and the like, and probably Mr. Ntegi over here. I think, well, the gentleman who lost his money through SWIFT, all I can say is apologies, sir. I don't refund the money, but what we are doing is that through platforms like Laban's platform or through the Bank of Uganda has a customer complaints desk, you can submit your complaint. They may not refund the money, however, they will investigate and make it better for you so that the next time you're in a position to submit, to send money, you will have all the information available to you on the cheapest means and you will be protected. I've also lost some money in that way. Because sometimes SWIFT says the standard $15. I'm sending $50, but standard $15. And I get a bit confused. And then sometimes along the way they say that there's the correspondent bank which is going to charge you another correspondent bank. But it's all about the lack of information for the customer. So before I go to SWIFT, I need to know what are the charges for me to send money to the US. What are the charges? Are you going to charge me, use the bank, and then how many other charges are there along the way? So that's very good feedback. I appreciate that. And what we need to do is just to improve, on the information that is delivered to you, so that you are aware about all these charges and you can make the right choice on the best channel that will be suitable for your purpose. Thank you very much. I guess the rest of the questions go to housing finance.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Are we tired? A lot of applause for him.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the questions and comments. I think Arnold has touched on a number of questions that have been raised. I will build on to what he mentioned under ESG. ESG is environmental social governance. And once you hear the boss saying that it is in a strategic plan, then you know that the banks will follow suit. Very soon, I'm sure they are going to put it as it's going to be a directive or the requirement that every bank must comply. But we are not waiting for BOU to tell us. We have actually started on this journey. We have even hired a consultant who understands matters of ESG to be able to support. Yesterday we had a discussion with World Bank on the same, and all they are saying is there is financing for green, housing, green financing. And yesterday I got to know, did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that housing is the number 3 carbon emission contributor? Did you know that? Housing, number 3. I was shocked because when you talk about housing, I was thinking about things like solar energy, trees, planting trees around your home. Now think about a house. With building a house, you need bricks. Where are the bricks coming from? How are they burnt? You're using firewood. How is that? How are the bricks transported to the site? You're using trucks that are emitting all these fumes. So the entire value chain around housing is actually impacting the climate. So yesterday, it's like gentlemen, you were in our discussion. So housing finance is already doing this. And World Bank, of course, together with the government and of course Bank of Uganda, they are going to see how to incentivize people who are supporting this agenda, people who are into climate smart projects, and see, offer, of course, support capacity building, cheaper financing, access to affordable financing, creating awareness, mindset change. If you tell Julius to build a house made out of, what are these called? Interlocking bricks, he might say, it will collapse. He wants brick, the real brick that is burnt, and he can see that it's... So we need to create mindset change, create awareness. So there's a lot of work happening in that space, and housing finance is already at it, and we'll be able to respond very fast. What other local programs do we have for the youth? Yes, we are already in talks with some of the partners. I'll not mention them here, but we are targeting youth in schools, and we are not just targeting secondary schools. For us, we want to focus on the technical institutions and the vocational institutions, because that is where we have seen a gap, a huge gap. So we want to support them in terms of skilling, in terms of entrepreneurship skills, in terms of... So we are already in talks with some of the partners that are going to support us to fund some of these projects, to support them on startups, do capacity building, and just above the financial interest that we are giving. So there is a lot we are doing in that space as well. Then taxes, remittances, apologies. When you send money, I'll give you an example. When you send money on mobile money, and you see that you have made a wrong transaction, MTN automatically debits your account. And so when you send it back, whatever means you're using, they will again charge. So like Arnold mentioned, it's very important that you understand the charges that are involved, so that in case of any costs, you are aware that, okay, I sent this money, it did reach the person, they have to send it back, and these are the costs that are involved. But that we apologize, and like he mentioned, Bank of Uganda is there to protect customers, and even the commercial banks are there to protect customers. So please air out some of these issues. We'll look into them and see how we can support you better. Thank you.
Round of applause for the EP. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for all the questions, for all the time that you spent here with us. We truly appreciate. I want to welcome Mr. Badron Tege to give the closing remarks as we conclude this forum. But most importantly, those who have been tweeting, God bless you so much. Those who have made a tweet out of all this, I want to say thank you so very much. Somebody tap for me, Laban, to come in back here so we can have a closing remarks when he's here. I want to let you know that this forum has been streaming live, so you can go and get a link of all this. We shall be sharing a link to all the numbers. Probably you'll be watching it at the comfort of your home to know how the event has gone. Trio Media has been doing this for us. Thank you so much, Trio Media. But just to let you know that the Parliamentary Forum on Labour, Decent Employment and Productivity is always open for you to come for any queries on labour. If you have anybody who is stuck abroad in the UAE who was maybe trafficked and needs help, the forum can help in bringing them back home, because that's why they are in operation, and in act of parliament they are formed. So they have the mandate to help in the family of those people, to help them come back. There's also a desk in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the monetary unit that the General J.J. John formed up to help all those companies that have gone aside beyond their mandate to bring back these people, to actually be forced to bring back these people if they were trafficked. And of course, the desk is soon going to be put in operations, and yes, you will be knowing the person who the money needs soon. Mr. Tege, if you set, let me know to give the closing remarks as we conclude this very event. Right, please. He's a diplomat.
Hello guys. First and foremost, I apologize for the insurance because it's still independent. My name is James Brian Twato. I work with Incredible Youth International. I also work with the Youth Coalition for SDGs. I'm very happy with one of the presentations that I've gone on. I just wanted to add a little bit of what has not been said. My brother who studies abroad. We have a challenge, especially government. It's unfortunate that it's BOU that is representing government here, but we have a challenge with our embassies. They do not have the customer care for the people that stay in these countries. I'll give you an example. I'm soon representing the country of Estonia in Uganda, and single-handedly I have been able to work with 3 associations. The first association is called EdTech, and by 3rd of August, which is next week, we're going to be having a webinar, and these are 70 companies trying to expand their businesses. So they're looking for local investors or local companies that are into education technology to work with these companies. And so that they can be able to work on bigger projects. They usually have opportunities to work with the European Union, and sometimes they need more capacity in terms of labor. So I'm already negotiating with the Minister of ICT to avail technological companies in Uganda and the education sector to take advantage of these opportunities. But when you deal with embassies, most of it is politically oriented as opposed to investment. I have an investor in the US, in Slidell, who wanted to invest $2 billion in the palm oil sector. And then I contacted the ambassador then, Mark attended, and he was attending a workshop somewhere, and like there was no straight way of doing business, so the investor got frustrated. I then came back to this country to follow up. So as much as our people in the diaspora want to invest money, there is no mechanism that will encourage them to do that kind of business. There is need for confidence for our people. No wonder our brother Rudin went to Stockholm and he could not pitch for better investors to come in this country. The other company is called the ICT cluster in Estonia. I didn't know that technological companies can have up to more than 5,000 workers. But this cluster has 200 companies that have an investment worth between 17 million euros to 3 billion euros worth of potential investment. And they're looking for allies to expand business. Because Estonia is a very tiny country with 1.3 billion, and they're trying to look for avenues for how they can expand their businesses. The last company or association I'm working with is the Estonian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. They have a collection of over 4,400 companies. Now these are in different sectors of the economy that feel like, okay, we can do housing, we can do industry, we can do factories, we can do energy, all these different things. And we haven't been able to streamline and establish platforms for such opportunities to be established. Now, this is just me, an individual, with a capacity of 70 plus 200 plus 4,400 companies that I can be able to attract to this country. Now, think about people that have been in the US the last 20 years, 40 years. We need to create opportunities to encourage Ugandans, beyond going to become a Kadama. Talk to your boss and see the opportunities that can come in this country. But if that is also possible, let the government help us show that, okay, when you bring an investor, you can also become a shareholder. I was talking to one of the gentlemen when we were having a breakfast that regardless of how much money they are selling or they are giving, because of the fact that my target is to have at least 100 companies in this country for which I can have shares. And even if those shares earn me 1,000 euros every day, no, every month, sorry. If I can have 1,000 times 100 companies, and that is at the bare minimum, I don't need to go and work anywhere. So if we can encourage our young people, our Ugandans, to look at opportunities to bring investment in this country, to look at partners that they could be able to attract, then we will be able to cover the gap of unemployment. Thank you so much.
All right, he's an ambassador. Ambassador Mtoto, thank you so much. Yes, you see, rich people do not dress in suits like us. Glasses, even if it's a dark room, you know. From Estonia, he's going to represent the country in Estonia. Well, thank you so much for giving us the information. I understand that when MTN was giving out an opportunity to Ugandans to buy shares, very many of the Ugandans say, the guy, who am I taking to MTN? MTN, how can I buy shares in MTN? Who am I? It was very little money. Recently, when they were giving out dividends to people who bought shares, me who had my 30 shares, I had my money. And I said, I wish I could have 500 shares. Because my colleague who bought 300, he's telling me, guy, I cannot go to the money and chill. You know? So buying shares is another discussion that we need to engage in. Even if it's 2 shares in a certain entity, buy them. You never know what can come out of the dividends. They can make huge sums of money and they say, you know what, it's dividends, it's discount. Uganda Clays. Mr. Tiki, you know how much Uganda Clays makes in a year and how much they give out in dividends. Huge sums of money. I wish Cambridge Health can say I'm selling out shares. Oh, come and buy. Come and buy, Dr. Vincent. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Mr. Badru Tege to give us closing remarks. I hope that even after this, after engaging with Mr. Tuatwan, I'll also be an envoy to Tanzania.
It's very disturbing. Good afternoon. I've enjoyed this session. Really the engagement. And thank you for convincing me. I got in trouble with the other people, but this was a better position situation. But let me start with the ambassador on the last bit. Just to summarize, there's a lot of work that is going on now to coordinate those, and we're driving that through private sector, UIA, Classic. So the issue you said is true, but that is why there's more the activities going on now and make sure that those conversations happen. So it's easier at UIA than at the embassy because there's more resources in future. Those opportunities are around and we'll engage you on this if you want to talk about. But we really had a good session today. Thank you, House and Finance. We've really opened up the conversation, and I think the conversation can actually continue down to making sure that we now benefit, and we know that these people are going to evolve down the chain. Another good thing that I think mentioned that we need to share a lot is let's share the positive stories. We like sharing the negative stories. Let's share the positive stories. When you talked about the border, we have a project at NFT called NFT Mobility, and we're teaching young ladies to become motorcycle mechanics. And 120 ladies who are mechanics, they don't need to have any qualification, even if you didn't go to school. And those ladies are amazing. And so so the border ecosystem is 67% of our GDP. So even if you focus in that business, and I have a challenge to discuss later. So we talked about, and I'm glad that our bosses feel you are here. I had my earlier gripes with Arnold, and I always have gripes, but the one advantage that we have, and I always say that, and we need to be able to make the noise to the policy makers. The good thing is when you make noise and they respond, we continue. And for the policy makers, every time they respond when they make noise, guess what? We're going to make more noise. What was Peter Pan? Please more, please more. Because we know that we're making impact and conversations are happening. So we'll continue that conversation and making noise. Investment mechanisms exist, and the challenges we've not maybe shared them along. Some of the suggestions they could come up with. For me, I think that one of everybody getting on a plane, yes, we get them their first passport. The next stage, let's get them their first account. You mentioned something that the BOE needs to look at now is the young people today. Let me ask the question, the young people in this room. How many of you, if I sent you mobile money, it will not show your name? Let's be honest. Right? Sorry? Some of you, it will show somebody else's name. The reason being, you had to get that because you did not have that physical NIRA card. True? Yes? Now without that physical NIRA card, you will not open a bank account. Right? I spend a lot of my time with young people. For me, they're the biggest investment. So I feel them and I know. So these young guys cannot open a bank account because BOE or the banks have translated the conversation to say, unless you show this physical card, you can have the letter from NIRA, right? But it's not good enough for you to open a bank account. Am I lying, young people? It is true, right? So they cannot open the bank accounts. Cousins at BOU, please. The letter from NIRA is confirmation that I'm working. I had a mistake on my ID. I carried it for 6 years and I went earlier this year to get it changed. To this date, I do not have it back. But for the last 4 years, I've been called Babu. If you look at my bank documents, some of them where I could not find hard enough, there is no D, there is a B. Right? Because somebody made a mistake and suddenly that became my new name. Right? So we're asking that there is a change there that young people are suffering silently because of that simple thing. If I have a NIRA letter that says, this is my name, it is in the system, every bank should allow me to open a bank account. I tried to open bank accounts for the border riders, I failed. Go back to Bukoma and Simbi, where you register. Yeah? This poor guy cannot even make enough money to live today. Now he has to go to Bukoma and Simbi to get his name. Yeah? So those are things that I think in the system that are very simple to fix. And dialogue like this, happens, and I think we need to continue this dialogue. Then we get some value and get back. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. I even managed to do a press conference in Uganda and I succeeded. My first effort. So thank you very much and enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you.
A round of applause for Mr. Brad from Ticket. He is the director of NFT Consults. I really understand where you're coming from. For those of us who have been on TV, doing a story in our Sengage is the hardest. But we've done it for 9 years. I've been in media for 9 years. Doing both Uganda and English. You can imagine how awesome I am. A round of applause for me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you so very much. I can't thank you anymore. I've done a lot of thank yous, and I'd like to pray that you go back home very well. The beach is still open. You can go out, take some pictures. We still own this venue till 6 p.m. So you can still be here if you want so. But we have a photo booth just right out there. Our panelists who have given us presentations right here. We'd like you to go out there and take pictures with our participants who have created this very conference, meet this forum, and the day will close just like that. If you want to stay along, the audience is on here. Have yourselves a good afternoon, and God bless you so much.
Just like the sun that lights up me, lights up my life. The only one I ever see makes my soul rise. But just yesterday, you came around my way. Gave my horse in pain, but you were astonishing beauty. Oh, you couldn't make a brother see ordinary thing, a supernatural being. And no, you are brighter than the moon, brighter than the star. I love you just the way you are. And you are my everything, the girl of my dreams. You take me where I've never been. You make my heart beat like darling. Oh, you are my everything, the girl of my dreams. And you remind me of
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request that we move to the photo booth. We want to take these pictures when the lighting is so the ambassador, you spearhead the delegation going for the photos. Madam E.T. and those request. Yes. Those of you who did carry your business cards, it's unfortunate, but the ambassador is doing so.
Going to UK? Are they going to Russia? Are they going to UAE? We need to know that from the beginning, before they depart. Many of the girls living here come from the villages. They have never seen a microwave. They have never seen an electric flat iron. And yet when they go there, these are the tools they will be required to be using. So we are now saying, when you are taking individual X, does that individual have the training from a licensed, recognized institution in preparation for the work they are going to do? In order to respond to the complaint about organ harvesting, we are now requiring that each individual that is going to be living will have had to carry out a medical examination from a recognized medical facility to establish that, one, the person is healthy, and two, all the body organs are intact. We will require that at the end of their contract, the same is done from the country where they have been working, a medical examination and a report to say that the organs of the individual are intact. When they arrive here, we will ourselves take another test, a confirmatory test, to do that. Because we do not want doubts left. We want to be absolutely clear. Did this person have organs when they were going? Have they come back with all the organs, or something happened in between? And if we confirm that something has happened, we will have to trace what happened. Where did it happen? Who is responsible?